In January of this year, I decided to ride around to Punta del Este in Uruguay, going via the international bridge at Gualeguaychú, which crosses the Paraná River. Total distance estimated, at least according to Google Maps, was about 800 kilometers, which isn't all that far, but it did take me a heck of a long time to get up to this bridge. I left at 6 in the morning, and I don't think I got here until about 10:30, something like that. Not really sure why it took so long. Possibly all those coffee breaks and filling the tank and one thing or another. But I wasn't in a hurry at all. The weather was lovely, very hot, about 35, 36, something like that. This border crossing isn't really what I was expecting, but and I was expecting a lot more officials walking around with clipboards and guns maybe and stuff like that, but didn't see anything like that, at least not there anyway. And there wasn't very much traffic at all, as you can see. Quite picturesque, at least approaching the bridge, and before you know it, the bridge sort of appears out of nowhere really, and quite a pleasant ride all in all. I made sure I was fully kitted up with spares, tools, a spare tank of petrol, 5 litres, because you're never really very far from a petrol station, let's face it. And, however, the petrol in Uruguay is nearly double the price of what it is in Argentina, but then that 5 litres wasn't going to get me very far anyway. Yeah, sandwiches. I remember to get sandwiches out of the fridge, fill the flask up with coffee. I had some Uruguayan pesos, not too many, and I'm trying not to use the credit card because the Argentine government has imposed a 30% tax on using any any foreign currency exchanges whatsoever, so wherever possible I was going to use cash. Just to avoid that tax, which you can't get back in your tax return or anything like that. But anyway, here we are, having fun on these nice long straight roads. I mounted the GoPro on the handlebar this time, although I think it probably would have been better on my chest because you get less vibration. And this is the beginning of the bridge, which I thought it was going to be much higher actually, but it isn't. Actually, the toll here was about, I don't know, $7, something like that, which is pretty cheap, really, to get across to Uruguay, so I'm not complaining at that. And then we get to the customs area, which looks like it's still being built. Luckily, there wasn't a queue. A lot of people had told me that there were queues kilometers long to get across, but fortunately on this day I was lucky. Not too many cars at all, and got through with no problems whatsoever. I'd remember to take all my documents. I've got a thing about documents down in South America. You've got a document for everything. Insurance, cellular for the bike, identification. I took my passport just in case, even though Argentina and Uruguay being part of Mercosur. This chap just waved me on. I'd taken sandwiches and a flask of coffee, and somebody I spoke to at the petrol station told me that they ate their sandwiches before they got to the border because they were confiscating everybody's sandwiches, which I thought was a bit mean. So I thought I'd take a gamble, and he didn't ask me anything, just waved me on. Excellent. It really isn't much of a border crossing, really. There's not much there at all. Particularly well signposted at this juncture, but I sort of followed my nose really, and just coming up here, yeah, that's right, salida usually means exit. Just follow the trucks, that seemed to be the key. And this bit here I was a little bit confused and just drove straight past it, and then the bloke shouted at me to come back and hand in my pink slip of paper to him, and I got no idea what the piece of paper said. Presumably it said that I'd been checked at customs, so I handed it over. Avoided the nice man at Cambio because I don't reckon the exchange rates are going to be too favourable, at least not in my favour, and then stopped for a nice cup of coffee. So here we are on the road in Uruguay, and you do notice almost immediately the slight change in quality of the roads, although they do get better than this. And also there are hills, believe it or not, in and around Buenos Aires. Well, it's all flat as a pancake, in fact, and to make the journey a little bit more interesting, it's rather nice to see the odd hill or undulation, really. Just makes everything a bit more interesting. And as the journey went on, I could tell that they really look after their roads. I'm not trying to criticise Argentina, but the infrastructure does need to be improved. You can tell that Uruguay pays a lot of attention to that kind of thing. Here we're going past the turning for Fray Bentos, which I've always remembered as being famous for that lovely corned beef we used to get in the UK. I've looked low and high for Fray Bentos corned beef, but I can't find it, so I'm not sure if they still make it anymore. If you see my fingers appearing, that's me just checking that the GoPro hasn't lost its angle of attack, so to speak. If you're a biker, you could say that these types of road are ideal for biking around. It really was a lovely ride. Not much traffic, dual carriageway most of the way. And here I am, arriving at the destination at about 6:30 in the evening. Quite tired, but satisfied after a really lovely ride. And waiting for that beer, which I knew was waiting for me at the house. I'd seen photographs of this house, because my wife had been there several times before, and I knew it was quite grand, but I really wasn't expecting it to be as grand as it was, in fact. Literally on the sea, on a private beach. I mean, I can't really describe the size of it. It's absolutely enormous. Shelter for the cars in case of hailstorms, special houses for the staff. Now that's what I call a garage. I mean, just look at that. To say it's idyllic would be an understatement, I have to say. Naturally, when you reach the sea, you have to take the odd shot of your bike in the dunes. And the sea was surprisingly warm, actually. Not like further south in Patagonia, well, not exactly in Patagonia, but in the coastal resorts of Buenos Aires. It really is much colder than the sea, but this was really lovely and sandy. We had our own beach house, which came with a jacuzzi and seating outside. There's a beautiful pool up at the house. It really was luxurious, is the only way to describe it. And peaceful. Hardly anybody ever walked on that beach because it was private, and you could just get out of bed and jump in the sea if you wanted to. And look what I found wandering around the beach. So we stayed here for about 4 or 5 days, and then it was time to go back. But instead of driving all the way up to Gualeguaychú again, we decided that I would ride to a place called Colonia, which is possibly the shortest distance between Uruguay and Argentina, and book into a hotel there, and my wife jumped on a bus later this day to meet me there. So we can have a lovely evening together in Colonia. We'll walk around and then get the ferry back the following day. I mean, I love riding the bike, but you know, when the opportunity presents, instead of going all the way up for hundreds of kilometers and then all the way back down, you know, like doing two massive sides of an isosceles triangle, it made more sense to have a bit of fun in Colonia instead. And again, you know, the roads in Uruguay are just perfect. They really are, you know, for riding. Just here I stopped for a quick break, and a chap's car broke down, so I had to actually help to push it. He was really friendly. I was a little bit suspicious at first, but maybe that's, I don't know, me being a little bit paranoid, but in South America you do have to be careful. I really did like this avenue with the palm trees. This is approaching Colonia, where we were due to stay the night in a hotel that I just picked out of off Google. It turned out to be lovely. It's not a particularly fast bike. I suppose I was averaging, top speed on this bike is about 120 kilometers an hour. But I certainly wasn't averaging that because I wasn't in a hurry. So let's say I was averaging 55, 60, something like that. Nice not to be in a hurry, to be honest, and just take everything in, you know, quietly and calmly. GPS was very useful. Oh, here we are arriving at the hotel. And apart from the swimming pool, they had a massive underground car park where we met some French blokes who were riding all the way around South America together. And this is called a chivito. Steak, egg, bacon, salad, on bread. It was amazing. And that's the ferry, well, one of the ferries. I'd never actually seen Buenos Aires from the river, and this was a real eye-opener. I was looking forward to you know, to seeing the view. And of course, being the River Plate, it's a much different colour to the Atlantic, always being very brown and rather murky. But yes, it was tantalising. You hope we're not going to crash. I did once arrive in Buenos Aires by sea, but that was in '76.
Are they betting casinos or something? Do they still use them? They look a bit...
Yeah, but you can only bet when they're navigating.
What, they actually leave port?
Yeah.
Those things?
Yeah,
Jesus. Bloody hell. They don't look very seaworthy. Well, still, today. I don't want to cross the Atlantic in one of those.
Just go outside the port.
Okay.
Once you're
I know. I'm pulling your leg.
Once you're outside the port, it's a different jurisdiction. You're not in the
International waters.
No, national, but you're not in the city of Buenos Aires.
Oh,
You cannot bet in the city of Buenos Aires.
but you can in the provincia.
Yes, so if you leave port, then you are outside the city.
Yeah, I got that. Can you explain that to me again?
No.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. I mean, I bet that thing doesn't move anywhere. No, I don't think they do move.
No, they don't move any longer.
No, of course they don't. But are they still casinos?
Yeah, you see.
They must have changed the law because they're actually floating or something like that. Buglialo.
The crossing was only about, I don't know, an hour and a half. It was really quick. And within about, I don't know, 40 minutes of arriving at the port, I was putting the bike in the garage.
Mechanised winches which turn and the rope pulls them in at the same time.
That's me explaining how ferries dock.